Okay, class, we're going to look at job costing, and in order to learn this topic, I'm going to look at the 2016 higher level question for job costing. Um, if you have the question in front of you, you will see that the setup to the answer is pretty similar to the way the question is laid out, and I'm going to allow you guys to pause the video and set it up as it appears on the screen, and then we'll go through the answers. So it says Moran Limited has two production departments, 1 and 2. Here they are, number 1 and number 2. And then two ancillary service departments, A and B. And the following costs relate to the year 2016. And it gives you a whole series of costs, the whole way down, adding up to 853,600. And then it tells you that some of these have been broken down as directed by the questions. So it says indirect materials. I've written down here the basis of apportionment, which is the basis that we're going to split up these costs. Well, the actual split has been given to us, 245 and 135. And in indirect labor, the actual split has been given to us. So we're splitting this 400, 280, and 120. And just to emphasize, production departments are where a product is being made. So perhaps in a factory setting, you could have assembly and you could have polishing, or you could have finishing, or even packaging, something like that. And then these service departments are ancillary, which means extra. They are vitally important, but nevertheless, they're not integrated into the actual manufacturing of a product. So you might be talking about service A being a maintenance department, fixing things, but not making products. Or service department B might be the cleaning department, cleaning things, but not making products. That will become relevant when we do part B of the question. You write in the machine maintenance, and we know it's 12,000. Depreciation of buildings, factory light and heat, cleaning and canteen. They give you all of this information, and they tell you the costs. And then part A of the question says, calculate the overhead to be absorbed by each department, clearly showing the basis of apportionment used. So for example, in machine maintenance, the second set of figures in the question in front of you, the second set of figures gives you a whole pile of background information which any company would have about their own factory. So it tells you about the volume, the floor area, the number of employees, the book value of buildings, the machine hours, and the labor hours. You have to pick the most suitable basis of apportionment for each individual overhead here, and we're going to split it up using that basis of apportionment. So for machine maintenance, I think possibly the most suitable basis of apportionment there out of those 6 in the second box might be machine hours. So you write down machine hours in here, and then what we're going to do now is we're going to take this 12,000 and we're going to split it between the 4 departments on the basis of machine hours. So you look at the machine hours in the question and you see that the total is 50,000, and that is split 3:2, or 30,000 and 20,000. We need to split our 12,000 3:2, or 30:20, as the question does. So I'm going to just bring you over here for a moment because I have this already done. You take your 12,000, divide it by 50, and then multiply by 30, and take your 12,000, divide by 50, and multiply by 20. And your calculator will do that fast for you, and that should give you the following numbers. It should give you 7,200 and 4,800. That is 30,000 and 20,000 of the 50 total. Depreciation of buildings is a very similar thing. So all the depreciation on the buildings combines to 30,000. What is the best way to apportion that? Well, I think out of all of the information we have, the book value of buildings is the most relevant. And the book value of buildings has a total of 600,000, and then that is split 300, 150, 150. So therefore, again, I'm going to show you this one. Here's your 30,000 overhead. You divide it by 600 and you multiply it by 300, by 150, by 100, and by 50. And it's going to provide you with the following numbers here. It's going to be 15, which of course is half of 30. 7.5, which is half again. And then you're on 5,000, and then you're on 2.5. And that is how to split that down. Now, all of these can be done on your calculator, but I just said I'd show you those first two. Factory heating, or light and heat. Well, that is the volume of the building or the factory, because the higher the ceilings and the bigger the place is, the more it will cost to heat it. So the production department volume is quite big, 3,000 and then 1,500, then 1,000 and then 500. The total, of course, is 6,000. So therefore, to split that down, you're going to be getting 9,000, 4.5, 3,000, and 1,500. So what we're saying here is that each department has to pay this much of the overall heating cost. Likewise, cleaning. Now, cleaning is usually based on floor area, and it is a cost of 8,000. How does that split down? Well, the floor area is 1,000 in total, so you divide 1,000 in and then multiply by 400, 300, 200, and 100. And that's going to give you 3,200. 24, 16, and 800. And finally, we have the canteen costs. And of course, how do you split down canteen costs? Well, that is the number of employees. The department with the most people will need the most canteen facilities. So therefore, the number of employees is 490. You divide that into 5,600 and you multiply respectively by 280, 140, and 70. There are no employees in the service department B. So that is 3,200 and 1,600, and finally you have 800. Then you add these numbers up. My Excel sheet has already done that for you, and you're going to get the 853,600, which is at the total overheads. And we have said that we're going to allocate 562,600 to the first production, 275,800, and then 10,448 to these small service departments. Now, part B of the question asks you to transfer the service department costs to the production departments, number 1 and 2. So they want you to take this 10,400 and split it back in here between these two. Because of course, we cannot include, let's say this is maintenance. They're not making products. So therefore, if we want to recover their costs, we have to include them in the production of our products. So we're going to take it out of here. This is called reapportionment, where we take that 10,400 out of here. And instead, we're going to split it back in here. And we are told in the third piece of information in the question, it says service departments are to be transferred to the production departments. Service department A is 70/30. So therefore you take this and you multiply by 70% and 30%. Now the 70% is going to get you 7,280, and the 30% is 3,120, and that is a total of 10,400. And then we're going to take this 4,800 and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to reapportion it back between these two departments. And that gives you 2,880. I should have said this is on a basis of 60/40 this time, just whatever the question instructs you to do, and then 1920 in this situation. Now we have still the same total overheads. It's just that we've juggled them a little bit. Still 853,600, but now we have 572,760 for production department 1 and 280,840 for production department 2. And that will allow us to proceed on to part C of the question. Part C of the question I've already done out here, but let me show you what you're doing. It says, calculate a suitable overhead absorption rate for each department. Now, an overhead absorption rate is where you take your overhead and you divide by a number of hours to find out how much the rate can be charged per hour. Now, the suitable hours or the suitable rate, it depends on whether a department is more dependent on machine hours or on labor hours. So in your question, if we look at the comparison, in production department 1, the machine hours are 30,000, but the labor hours are 15,000. So therefore, machine hours are the dominant activity. So we take our overhead from department 1 and we divide it by the dominant activity, which is machine hours, and that gives us €19.09 per machine hour, and that is our overhead absorption rate for that department. And then you take department 2, and that's 280,840, and we're going to divide that by labor hours, because if you look at your labor hours from the question, machine hours are 20,000, labor hours are 45. So labor hours are the dominant activity in department 2. So you divide this in and you get €6.24 per labor hour. It is important that we label both of those so that we know going forward. That's part C completed. And then we go on to part D of the question. And part D of the question is going to look something like this. Now, before I go down through where I got this information from, I'm looking at the last part of the question where it says job 650 has just been completed. And the details are as follows. And it tells you how much materials and how much labor and how many hours, be those machine or labor hours, that it is spent in each department. And it also says the company budgets for a profit margin of 20%. So therefore, it's giving us all of this information and it's asking us to calculate the cost and then an appropriate selling price for this particular job, be it a batch of products that have been ordered. So the materials is quite easy here. There are 3 parts here. Perhaps I should highlight these. It is materials, labor, and overheads, exactly the same as it was in production budgeting, except in production budgeting we had fixed and variable overheads, and we had material X and Y perhaps, but it's the same principle. So the materials are given to you. It is 7,500 and 2,800, and we just total that up to get 10,300. The labor is given to you, 4,000 and 3,900, and you total that up to get there. Now the overheads, this is the slightly tricky bit. In production department 1, we know that it is a machine dominant department. So therefore we take our machine hour rate, which is 19.09 per machine hour, and we multiply that, we have to multiply that by machine hours. So you look and you say, production department 1 machine hours, that's 120 hours by 1909. The overheads come to 2,290 and 80 cents. And then you take production department 2, and we know that this is a labor hour dominant department. The rate we've worked out ourselves to be €6.24 per labor hour. So you take that 624 and you multiply that by the labor hours for department 2, which are 100. That's how long this job, 650, spends in the production department 2. And that's by €6.24, which is 624. Your total overheads are the 2 added together, and then you add up all 3 of these to get your total cost of production. Now, the question then does say that the company budgets for a profit margin of 20%. The margin, that means that 20% is 20% of the selling price. So therefore, you call the cost of production 80%, and if you divide it by 80 and multiply it by 100, there is your selling price, 26,393. 50 cents. The difference is going to be your profit, which is 527,870. That's what they are going to make out of this job. And then there is a bit of theory, but that is in your theory handout, so I'm going to let you refer to that. That is a fairly tricky production or job costing question. That will allow you, completion of that will allow you to do a lot of the older questions from your question pack as revision.